So, my friend from high school asked me why I, as a Christian, am pursuing business. And I want to respond to them in a very precise way. I want to give a lot of examples. And the first way I will respond to this is by pointing out that Jesus and the apostles used their work to facilitate their ministries. Jesus and a lot of the apostles were carpenters. They would go around to different towns and they would do their work. And through this, they would reach the people of the town and spread the word of God. And this is ultimately what I want to do through my career in business is reach others and spread the word of God and build a well and be a participant in the human flourishing of the earth and of our communities. And now, the core of my argument, the core foundations of my belief is the fact that Jesus did not act unless he was spoken to by the Father. He constantly listened to the words of God to walk in step with him. And there are a few examples of him doing this. When he was at the Jewish wedding and they ran out of wine, he had the servants fill the jars that were meant for hand cleaning. He had them fill them with water and he turned it into wine. This was through the words of the Father. When he was traveling to Galilee, most of the Jews would avoid Samaria, go around because of the fighting between the two groups. But God told him to walk straight through Samaria. And this is where we got the story of the Samaritan woman. And lastly, when Lazarus died and he was away from them, he was not hasty. He was not affected by the panic or and anything of the world. He sat patiently and he sat quietly until he heard the words of God in order to follow in his footsteps. And this is the core foundation of my beliefs and my argument because as Christians, as I have my faith in Jesus, I want to every single day pick up my cross and follow him and walk on his narrow path. And through this, I believe I have been called to business because he has given me the gifts of discipline, of critical and logical thinking, of leadership, of perseverance, and of passion. And all of these different gifts that he has given me align me very greatly with success in business. And so, for those reasons, I believe that I belong in business as a Christian, and I want to use that as a facet of my ministry and my mission in God. Now, I want to talk about a certain company in Sherman's book that we learned about. It's called Bigelow House. It is a construction business, I believe, in Chicago that is a real well for its community. It builds houses at affordable costs for families to live in comfortably and safely. And a part of this section in the book was talking about how most companies will upscale when they can at the cost of their employees. So businesses will upscale, get more money, and spend more money, and through that, they will have to lay off employees. And as we know, this always starts from the bottom up. And Bigelow House did the exact opposite. It stayed faithful and it stayed listening in God, and it walked down the path of retaining its employees because they deserved it and they need it. And so a quote from this is talking about this kind of facet of business, and it says, quote, "It does so by refusing to overreach in the good times and eschewing the temptations to become big for the sake of bigness," unquote. And so it's basically saying that it refused to upscale when it could, technically, because it would be negative to its employees. So it stayed small and it stayed strong in order to retain all of its employees and allow them to feed their families and live good lives. And this is the kind of Christian forward, Christian focus business practices that I want to implement into my own. And another key aspect of my argument is the faith at work movement that is widely recognized by Sherman and David Miller as well, who talks a lot about the four quadrants, of the faith at work movement that I will get into. But before I do, I want to insert a quote here from a journal I found written by Laura Da Silva of Evangel University on the importance of Christians pursuing business. And it says, quote, God's purposes on earth include redemption, providence, justice, compassion, and revelation of truth. In carrying out the purposes of God, businesses truly reflect God's nature. And I want to put this in because it overarchingly shows the nature of God and the fact that we have been made in God's image. We can reflect these natures. We can be a mirror of these natures. God has allowed us to be redemptive. He has allowed us to pursue justice. He has allowed us to be compassionate for others. And He has given us the capability of revelation, of renewing the earth and making it better in His name. And so, with that preface, I want to talk about two of the quadrants in the Faith at Work movement. One of them is the quadrant of ethics and the quadrant of enrichment. The quadrant of ethics, everybody who identifies with this movement and is in the workforce, in the business workforce, they are workers who belong to quadrant one, which is ethics, and they invite their faith into the workplace through, quote, attention to personal virtue, business ethics, and to broader questions of social and economic justice, unquote. And that comes from Sherman's book. So as you can see, it kind of ties into the quote from Laura da Silva's journal, where these kinds of workers pursue personal virtue, pursue personal business ethics, and they advocate for social and economic justice. And as we know from the quote, God is justice, God is compassion, God is, virtue, He is ethics, He is everything. And so we can embody this and carry it into the business world and see some real results. And the second quadrant, enrichment, I personally value this one the most. I align with this one the most. It's the one that I want to pursue while I get into business. And the enrichment quadrant is made up of Christ-seeking workers who, quote, want the individual's experience of work to be a means of self-actualization and transformation, unquote. And I want to really be an emblem of this quadrant once I pursue my work, because I believe that self-actualization and transformation is very important, not even just in the workplace, but in our lives in general. We must look inward in order to look outward and help others. So I believe that I will be pursuing this kind of nature. I want my employees and I want my coworkers to be transformed and to seek self-actualization through their work and through the goodness that we do in order to reflect it outwards to our communities, in order to be a true well and participate in the human flourishing of the planet, which is ultimately God's goal. Thank you.